everybody, and welcome to The Split, the young adult book review podcast for readers and writers. I'm Brian Cohen, the author of the Ted Saves the World series. That is Robert Scanlon jamming away. You can't see it, but he wrote the Dreamer Chronicles. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Brian. How's your week been?
Oh, in the week between these shows has been great. Thank you for asking.
That's very good. I'm recording this on Friday the 13th, by the way. For sometimes people might wonder exactly what our lead time is between recording and between actually airing. So that's a little giveaway for you there. But Friday the 13th, one of my favourite days. I was born on the 13th, so I always resonate with 13ths.
Same with me. I was born on the 13th of October. So,
there we go.
yeah.
Ta-da.
But not on a Friday.
Another thing we are not split about. I wonder if we're going to be split about this sequel.
This sequel, we're still on sequel month. We are reviewing Where She Went by Gail Forman, the sequel to If I Stay, which was popular enough to be made into a movie with Chloe Moretz, and that is many movies right now have been popular enough to be made into a movie with Chloe Moretz. Yes. And I love Chloe Moretz, so I'm cool with that.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this one. Interesting story with me on Where She Went. We were reading If I Stay. In fact, I'm not even sure if we had founded the podcast yet. I do not recall. But I was reading If I Stay. I was listening to it. And I was so excited to find out there was a sequel that I immediately downloaded it and listened to it that same day. So I absolutely needed to go into the sequel. And I think that's tough for an author if you have a first book that's such a slam bang hit that you've got to go into the sequel and you've got very high expectations. And I think Forman went in an interesting direction with this one. So would you like to take the honors of the summary and then we can get into talking about this?
Yes, I do recall we had started the podcast because you did tell me, you said, I went and bought the sequel. It was really good. I went and bought the next one straight away. And because I went and looked at my notes and realized that was something we'd spoken about. All right, then. So Where She Went, the sequel to If I Stay by Gail Forman. Mia Hall only woke from a coma because Adam Wilde, her fast becoming rock star boyfriend, told her he'd do anything as long as she stayed. So Mia did what Adam asked and used one of his offered options, leave him and go to Juilliard and break his heart. Following on from 3 years after If I Stay ended, Where She Went follows Adam's descent into depression and drug dependency in parallel with the mega success of his band Shooting Star and his relationship with one of Hollywood's rising stars. He's never been unhappier. And Where She Went is by Gail Forman, which it's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, the title implies Where She Went, and I was completely thrown by the fact that this is
when it was Adam.
All from Adam's perspective.
Mm-hmm. I was too. I did not realize at first, and it is jarring, but once you get settled, man, it's really interesting perspective shift.
Well, she's a good storyteller.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's a good storyteller.
She's definitely a good storyteller. And I didn't like it. But it wasn't rubbish. It's just that it didn't rock me, and I liked the first book. I didn't particularly like the ending. I thought it was too abrupt. So I remember speaking about that. But I did find that really hard to get into because I kept wanting. Well, where's Mia? Where's Mia? When am I going to find Mia? When's she coming back? When am I going to? And okay, so there is maybe that's also a great device as a reader because you have been so hooked by Mia in book one and you want to know where she went. And so now I'm experiencing what Adam's experiencing, which is this desperate disconnection. And so there's something good about that for sure.
For sure. And on my side, I loved it and ate it up with a spoon because I needed to know what happened. I needed to know what happened in the end. And I got there and I won't say if it was a happy or a sad ending, but I was very pleased with the ending,
Yeah.
and it was very satisfying for me, and I was emotional during it.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose there are those parts to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Tugs at the heartstrings,
yeah,
Robert.
yeah,
It tugged at the heartstrings.
Yeah. It's a good read. It's a fast read. There's some strong language in there. There is drug and alcohol reference. There's inferred sex. The main characters are actually 3 years older now, so
so it's a little bit new adult.
New adult almost, yeah. So we've got, and that's maybe not a bad thing, that people who are keen YA readers who see the attraction of then moving on into different territory. Who's to say? So I don't know that this is going to be as interesting for the 14 or 15-year-old YA reader, but definitely the 18-year-old YA reader and also the adult YA reader would, I think, still love this book. There's still clearly young people finding themselves.
Then again, I just want to play devil's advocate with this since we are split. If you're a 14 or 15-year-old girl and you loved Adam, this book might be awesome for you.
It might be. I think you'd have to get it depends what kind of 14-year-old girl you are. If you're really worldly wise, then I think that's going to be fine. And if your parents are okay with you reading things that are a little bit
I mean, if you're not allowed to read stuff like this, that's a different story.
Yeah, but you're dead right, though. Yes, the story itself, that's true. And look, having lived some of the rock and roll lifestyle myself, I think that was quite well done. I'd have no particular disagreements about how the life of rock stars was portrayed. It's not all, as they say in Australia, it's not all beer and Skittles. It can be tough being on the road, being with the same dudes all the time, and having the fake attraction from all of the people, the entourage that just are so desperate to be in the inner circle. It's extraordinary. I remember going to an in-store appearance that we'd organised with Bon Jovi, and so we took two vans, what do you call those, people mover type things with tinted windows, so no one could actually see. So it was two black vans. We had to go from the centre of Sydney out to a midwestern area of Sydney. And it was quite funny being in the front with them, the guys in the back hearing about their exploits the previous night, and I shall remain stum, but you guys.
That's funny.
It's very funny. There's too many stories. So as I said, I have been there and witnessed it, and on many occasions with many different types of stars, and seen how it can go well off track, and seeing what can happen when someone who is tempted by it going well off track but doesn't want it to. They just want to be an ordinary person, or they don't think that they're particularly brilliant. And I think from that perspective, Adam is really well done. It's a well told story. The deal for me, sorry, I'm taking over now. The deal breaker for me was that the first story had a really great premise, which is this girl loses her family and goes into a coma and has to choose between life and death. And so that's pretty strong, whereas I just didn't understand. This one's a romance, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, this has a before sunrise kind of feel to it, a movie where basically it's just two people walking around talking. And so it has that feel to it of the two people walking around New York.
Yes.
And I think that another thing that I liked about this book was that I love those movies. I love the two people walking around talking in a city thing, people reacquainting. And so I think that was definitely for me with this. It is very different. There is no strong hook like that, but I think that it's maybe a logical direction. I think it is a smart choice, because if you're just in Mia's head the whole time, you maybe have a little more information. And so by being in Adam's, you're able to preserve the mystery a little more. Why did they break it off? Why? And then kind of the end climax of the first book becomes very instrumental in the climax of this book.
Yes.
And I thought that was really interestingly done.
Yes, I would agree. And there are some, as you say, there are some emotional moments. It's a well-told story. I guess from a sequel perspective is where it didn't work for me. As an overall enjoyable book, I think you're right. You know, the sense of traveling around New York, the if anyone's ever experienced those times where something dramatic happens in your life and you stay up all night and you talk with this person or people and things happen, and then all of a sudden it's sunrise again, and there's that sense of distorted time and weird stuff happening in your life. I think that is excellently portrayed in this book, and for that reason it's a good story alone. It's just, for me as a sequel, I was disappointed.
I totally understand. I do think, though, that one thing it's got going for it, and we're basically in writers' perspectives now anyway.
Yeah.
One thing it's got going for it is when you do a sequel, you have a couple options. You can add to the existing kind of story you already had and kind of make it a bigger, better version, or you can go in a completely different direction. And in 2 weeks, we've seen two different paths on this. In the Throne of Glass series, we saw a bigger, better version of the original book.
Yes.
And in this, we see a complete turn. We see a completely different story, almost like it's one of those anthology movies where you're seeing a completely different take on the same event, or all those horror movies. You kind of see, yes, it's the same creepy thing, but it's different people.
Yes.
And it can be told in a completely different way. And so this is very much in that vein. And I think that in telling that kind of story, it's a success, but I could see where a lot of people who are certainly expecting the same thing, or expecting the same character, or expecting some hook that's as strong as the first one, would be disappointed.
Yeah, it's a dangerous thing, isn't it? And maybe calling it a sequel is actually probably not quite correct, because
it's really more of a spin-off.
It's a companion book.
Yeah.
It's definitely a companion book. But if you spent so much time with Mia's pain in book one, that it's really jarring not to have that. So I think if my recommendation to anyone who's thinking of reading it is that, yeah, go ahead and read it, but enjoy it as a companion book, because then I think you'll find it with that kind of mindset really enjoyable. I read it expecting it to be a sequel. Now, maybe that was my mistake. And it is timeline wise, so it is. But as you say, when you follow a completely different character, the risk that the author takes then is that the readers they found with the first book are not the readers that they find or that want the second book.
Yeah, I agree. But compared to The Prince, this is way better.
Yes, that's right. If you're going to talk about companion books, let's not go there. And like I say, she's a great writer. I mean, the writing, there's some great moments of dialogue and description. You really do feel like you're walking through the streets of New York, and I've never walked through the streets of New York, so to have that make me feel that way as well, I think that's fantastic. And I love the fact that at times Adam, he just behaves like a complete and utter moron. And he just treats Kim so badly, and he knows he's doing it kind of. And oh god! So there's some good conflict in there. Plenty of angsty stuff.
Yeah. I've heard the teenage girls love angst.
Yes. Yeah.
So
go on.
I mean, we've kind of gone around on this. Do you feel like you have any more writers' perspectives to share?
I do have one thing that threw me, because it's in my notes here. Very early on in the book, so you'll come across it, Adam refers to a 3-year restraining order she basically took out on me, which I violated tonight. And that set me up. I was forever expecting, when did this moment of violence happen? And it never did. And so I really didn't understand what that meant. And I presume later on that he was meaning that as some kind of metaphor.
Yeah.
And it really threw me. So it was only 2 words, restraining order, but that's a very heavy use of something. So it's not going to do that for everybody. That's just me being a little picky. But I really thought, oh, right. So that's going to be the premise of this book. Adam did something really bad that he regrets, beating up some girl who only managed to just survive a horrific road accident. And I thought, that's going to be an interesting story, and it never was. Maybe I need to write it. Fan fiction, the ugly side.
Fan fiction. Where else she went?
To court.
To court. So I'm going to take a takeaway. You take a takeaway. I'll take a takeaway.
Take away.
All right. So I want to play on those 2 options. I think when you have a sequel, consider doing bigger or better, but it's not the only option. If you do choose the something completely different, you will get some people to not enjoy it as much as the first, but you also will preserve a sense of originality you might not have been able to in the other direction.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, she demonstrated her versatility as a writer. There's no question about that. I wonder, whether it was, this is a publishing contract, got to get something out. And so, and all it would have perhaps needed is either for me to have Mia in there somewhere as a point of view, and certainly it needed much bigger stakes. The stakes were to even. I mean, look, I'm happy to read a romance. It's not that I'm saying that the romance wasn't enough for me. I just don't think it was so drawn out and such a lengthy thing that it needed more. And again, that's quite a personal opinion. So, you know how much I love action stories.
Yeah.
I'd give it 3.5 stars. It's not something I go and reread.
I'll reread it one of these days. But I'll reread them back to back because that'll be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Marathon.
Oh God. So your takeaway number 3?
Takeaway number 3. I think that one thing this book does so well that the first book does as well is portray the music, and I think it does this from the other angle completely. Yes. I remember loving the way the classical music was explained in the first book, and seeing the rock music explained just as well. I mean, it really just shows Gayle Forman's expertise. So I think that when you have a moment to reflect your own expertise in a book, to hit it from multiple different angles, and people are going to be really, really invested in that aspect of the story.
And she's not even a musician.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing.
She's done a great... I mean, she obviously knows some people. I seem to remember... obviously. I seem to remember from the author notes or reading an interview with If I Stay, that she had to really study it when it became obvious to her that Mia needed to have some special talent, and she decided to make her a cellist. So pretty interesting. And I really did like the way that was all done. You're right. Actually, it's another string to her bow.
I would love it if you shared your prompt this week.
I will.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
So this is going to spur a big non-sequential point of view switching series from somebody out there. So when you do start that, please let us know. And here's your prompt. Your lifelong best friend, who you just helped at great sacrifice to yourself, has announced they have been told by their therapist to cease all contact with you with no explanation. How does this affect your plans, and what action will you take?
The that would be so sad. So sad.
I just wouldn't stop crying.
You would change my plans to crying. You can answer the prompt of the week at thesplitbookreviews.com. You can send us an email with your latest books that you love that we should review at podcast@thesplitbookreviews.com, or you can tweet us at The Split Book. And yeah, check us out on our YouTube channel. Go post an iTunes review.
Yeah, we'd love that. We always love that.
You would love that. Robert would love that. He would stop crying and he would be so happy.
That's right. I'd even I will bring back Snobbot for anyone who leaves an iTunes review.
Snobbot. I know we're doing one of two sequels next week, but I can't recall off the top of my head which one it is.
It's Brandon Sanderson's Firefight, which is the sequel to Steelheart. So we have another, magical action series. So it'd be interesting to see what Sanderson does with that, since we loved book one so much, and we know that Sanderson is a bit of a formulaic writer. So will the sequel follow the same formula?
Only time and us can tell.
That's right.
Well, this has been great. For Robert Scanlon, I'm Brian Cohen. Thank you for listening to or watching The Split, and we will be back here next week for another sequel review.
Indeedy. And please find someone you love. Go walk the streets with them for a night. It'll change your life.
Thank you guys for watching. Somewhere on this page is a subscribe button to the Split channel. We do reviews every week. We would love it if you followed us every single week. Isn't that right, Robert?
That's exactly right. Follow us now. Hit the subscribe button.
Do it.